Everything is wrong except what is right. And what is right depends on what position you happen to hold, what side of the track you're on, what tribal affiliation you've got. Nigel Farage's premiership is not merely hypothetical, it's a project, and disturbingly it's a project already underway. What we're witnessing is the deliberate staging of a constitutional bypass, a political drama scripted by figures like Andy Wigmore, Aaron Banks and Steve Bannon. Is not a coup, but something more subtle. A procedurally compliant authoritarianism enabled, ironically, by Labour's own technocratic instincts and strategic myopia. Andy Wigmore, the shadowy PR operator behind Leave.eu, has outlined a startling plan on social media to exit the European Convention on Human Rights, the ECHR, to repeal all legislation since Tony Blair via emergency powers, to call a snap election, and to install Farage as Prime Minister. This is not satire, it's a strategy. And it borrows directly from Steve Bannon's infamous mantra, disrupt, dismantle, rebuild with our people in charge. This is the authoritarian playbook, executed not through tanks, but through parliamentary procedure and emotional manipulation. Farage's path is being paved, ironically, by the Starmer-Reeves leadership. Statutory instruments, like Labour's quiet use of the Henry VIII powers to bypass scrutiny, sets a precedent that Farage would weaponise. The ECHR ambiguity and Starmer's refusal to clearly commit to the ECHR makes it politically expendable. Rachel Reeves' economic programme dismantles protections on food, farming and planning, aligning with deregulatory zealots. And Labour's rhetoric on migration, on crime and identity politics increasingly mimics Reform UK talking points, as indeed does Kemi Badenoch's. Labour refuses to reform the Constitution, leaving it ripe for exploitation. We are in a state of constitutional paralysis. In short, Starmer is governing like a technocrat, Farage would rule like a demagogue, but the institutional groundwork is shared. And observe how Farage is already rehearsing premiership. He now controls councils from Warwickshire to Kent, clashing with civil servants and testing how far his power can stretch. He's staffing up, appointing figures like ex-prison governor Vanessa Frake as his prison's czar. His press conferences are staged events complete with defectors, scandals involving asylum seekers and choreographed outrage. His internal Department of Government Efficiency, Doge, mimics state bureaucracy while circumventing its principles. This is not merely populist noise. This is now institutional rehearsal. Farage is stress-testing the system and finding it obligingly brittle. Wigmore and Bannon envisage a constitutional emergency to catalyse Farage's rise, and the mechanism is familiar. Declare a national crisis on migration, on crime, on economic collapse. Claim Labour has failed to respond, a plausible charge. Demand a snap election as a patriotic imperative. Win not by a landslide, but with sufficient plurality to claim a mandate and govern by decree. As one Reform UK insider put it, this is not about winning power through trust. It's about making the system so broken that only we look like we care. And if installed, Farage's premiership would move fast to exit the ECHR, permitting deportations and infinite detention, to repeal equality, data and human rights laws often by decree, to purge woke officials, reorienting the civil service towards nationalist priorities, to reorganise the judiciary, possibly following Orban's model of court packing, to expand Doge into a parallel audit state overriding local councils. This is not so much conservatism as reactionary accelerationism, a rapid unmaking of the 21st century state. And Farage's public persona is being rebranded from pub provocateur to elder statesman. He speaks not of revolution now, but of cleaning up. He avoids direct racism, opting for dog whistles and plausible deniability. He surrounds himself with common sense experts, ex-governors, businessmen, defectors. He presents reform not as a fringe rebellion, but as a rescue committee for a failed Labour project. In this narrative, Farage doesn't seize power, he accepts it reluctantly for the good of Britain. This is not merely a constitutional risk, it's a cultural one, and we are sleepwalking into disaster. Labour's managerialism is producing disillusion, not enthusiasm. What citizens feel is they feel unheard by Labour, disrespected by the Conservatives, threatened by decline. They may turn to Farage not because they trust him, but they believe everything else has failed. And that's when populism thrives. Everything else hasn't completely failed. The Lib Dems should step up and take the stage. They're not doing so, they're keeping quiet. We must understand this clearly. Starmer is not the bulwark against Farage. He is the prelude to Farage in this plan. Unless Labour abandons its authoritarian drift and embraces institutional reform, civil liberties and democratic transparency, it will not stop Farage, it will install him. This is the staging we're watching the curtain rise. The emergency powers are not coming, they are already here, they are waiting to be used. We need a firm commitment to the ECHR. We need sunset clauses on emergency powers. We need electoral and constitutional reform. We need a reassertion of civil service neutrality and public literacy about how democracy is dismantled, not by tanks, but by votes, slogans and silence. The theatre of authoritarianism is playing out in Britain in real time. Whether it becomes tragedy or farce at this stage is entirely up to us.